prepare for the ANC Lekgotla, which was held over 3 days from the 28th to the 30th of July. The ANC Lekgotla normally is called twice a year. The January one, which is doing the assessment of performance, and the July one, which prepare contributions of the ANC towards the formulation of the budget for the next financial year. So what we are doing now is in the budget cycle that will be in the budget, not of October, which is the midterm budget, to the February budget. That is what we're meeting for. And the National Executive Committee received a presentation of the framework that would guide the work of the Lekgotla, and a report of the National Working Committee on the recent interactions the working committee had with the structures of the organization in the Western Cape province. We received a briefing, was also from the ANC engagement with the Botswana governing party, the Botswana Democratic Party, the BDP. Abantu kabayezwe BDP amaDonkrach. On the ANC participation in the 55th anniversary of the founding of the BDP, which coincides with the 55th anniversary of the Lobatse Conference. Lobatse Conference of the ANC was the first conference of the ANC outside of the country after banning. I know that most of the time we talk of Morogoro, we talk of Kabwe, but the first conference outside of the country was in Lobatse in 1962, in October. The NEC was unanimous on the need for the ANC Lekgotla to focus its energy primarily on the interventions to halt the economic decline and develop a growth story for South Africa. Because this decline has led to the negative GDP growth. It has also, for 2 quarters, that is technical recession. Outcomes of this process should be immediate intervention to deal decisively with unemployment, with specific focus on youth unemployment and unemployed graduates. An issue that came up more sharply is the growing number of unemployed graduates, as well as measures to protect the local labor and jobs. That talks to an issue of sectors that have been totally taken over by foreign nationals. One of those will be your hospitality sector. If you go to a restaurant today, you are likely 9 to 1 to be served by a waiter who is not a South African. It sought to emerge with a strategy to assist the country recover from the rating downgrades by, among others, changing the low growth structure and enhancing the economy's capacity to absorb new entrants to the labor market. The NEC further directed the NEC Lekgotla to engage and come up with concrete proposals on the implementation of fee-free education for the working class and the poor, moving the national health insurance from the phase of pilot to implementation phase, harnessing innovation and science as a tool for economic development and growth, as well as strengthening the capacity of the state to deliver against the aspiration and the resolution of the African National Congress. These were identified as the key priorities for the Lekgotla. I think it is important to remind you that the Lekgotla of the ANC outcomes become an input to the Cabinet Lekgotla, which starts tomorrow. That's why, as we go through the statement, you will see that the ANC encouraged government to do this. The ANC directed government to do this because whatever we decide must be factored in the program of the government that will be developed by the Cabinet Lekgotla starting tomorrow. Now, on the Western Cape, the Western Cape received a report on the challenging currently confronting structures of the ANC in the province. These have been occasioned by, among other reasons, the PEC decision to dissolve the REC of Dala Oma region. PEC meaning Provincial Executive Committee, RC meaning Regional Executive Committee. And following this decision, 4 of the 6 regions of the Western Cape convened a media briefing to object to the action taken by the PEC, and the REC of Dala Oma lodged an appeal formally to the NEC. Then WC took a decision to intervene in the province and consequently met with the branches of the ANC across the province followed by a joint meeting between the NEC and the PEC. So we went to all 6 regions. Team of NWC members in each region of the Western Cape. Every team was led by an official. It fitted well in the Western Cape because there are 6 regions and there are 6 officials. So we're in all the 6 regions. The report of the NWC painted a picture of the ANC structures in all regions being deeply divided. Further, that the PEC itself is weak and divided. However, noted some of the positive aspects in this regard, being its youthfulness. We have a relatively young PEC there, energetic, as well as its demographic and geographic diversity, which has always eluded the Western Cape. Instead of a PEC that is mainly composed of activists from the metro, we're having a PEC that is having a spread of representation across the province. We saw that as positive. Therefore, the National Executive Committee is of the view that there needs to be serious political investment in the Western Cape in order to realize our vision of regaining political power in that province as early as 2019. I can see your face, you say, how? 2019, we will do it. We'll invest in the province, we'll do that. I can see your face. It's the same when I see your face, it's something called body language. To this end, the NEC resolved that the state of the PEC must be consistently monitored, with the NEC providing support to the PEC for it to be able to execute its responsibilities. Further, that the team of deployees to the Western Cape should be reinforced. And an intensive political education program be undertaken in the province. Finally, the appeal of the Regional Executive Committee of Dala Oma against that resolution be upheld and the REC be reinstated. National Working Committee and NEC deployees will return to the Western Cape to engage structures on the way forward. That means explaining conditions for the reinstatement of Dala Oma, because it is not a region of angels. So we should go back there and say to them, you will have to amend your way of doing things in this area, this area, this area. But we thought that that should be done in face-to-face meetings in the province. The NEC also adopted a proposal to form part of the celebration of the 50th anniversary of the formation of PDP and the Lobatse Conference as part of the launch of our work to develop the liberation heritage route in Botswana. For example, It is amiss that we have not had a monument. In Lobatse, we hadn't had a monument that actually symbolizes the Gaborone massacre. So we'll have to have those monuments so that there is a clear liberation heritage route in Botswana, so that the contribution of Botswana to our is not. The Lekgotla was the last one of this term of the leadership elected in the 50th National Conference in 2012, meaning that this NEC will not lead any further Lekgotla. This is the last Lekgotla for us as the NEC now. It was attended by members of the NEC, members of the cabinet, alliance partners, the leagues, other structures of the mass democratic movement, cadres deployed in various positions in the state. Its primary objective was to identify urgent priorities for government and to make proposals to guide the development of government 2018-2019 budget to be delivered in February 2018. Now, one of the things we emphasize is that sometimes when a term is coming to an end, you tend to slow down unaware. And we said you don't need to slow down because leadership is a continuous process. The new NEC that will be elected in the December conference will not start from a blank slate. It will continue from where we have left and continue with the work of the ANC. That's how leadership is. When you take over leadership, you inherit the work of your predecessors, good and bad. So that is what is going. So we're not hamstrung by the fact that it's our last Lekgotla. The Lekgotla commenced with the political overview delivered by the President, which was followed by two presentations, one on the priorities mandating the budget 2018, on the National Development Plan, and another on the economic fiscal outlook presented by Comrade Dev and Comrade Malus respectively. The Lekgotla noted marked improvement in the attainment of the objectives set by the Mangaung Conference, specifically following basic education being on the upward trend. We're improving in basic education, including in comparative studies with other countries internationally. Particularly in the continent, we've moved up dramatically in assessment of our performance, including performance in mathematics where we were dismal a few years ago. The enrollment of post-school education and training has increased dramatically. There is a marked improvement in the health status of our people as reflected in enhanced life expectancy, reduced infant mortality, and reduced maternal mortality. You look at all the indexes there, we've done relatively well. Improved provision of basic services, including electricity connections, potable water, sanitation, solid waste management, notwithstanding a problem with quality and reliability of supply due to neglect of maintenance. So the question of maintenance of the infrastructure has been identified as a weak point. Sometimes we roll out infrastructure and put up new one and so forth. Forget that the one that we have put in requires maintenance on an ongoing basis. Sustained provision of social assistance to more than 17 million beneficiaries, alleviating acute poverty for poor households. In our analysis, the question of social security is always stated in negative terms, instead of appreciating the role it is playing in taking a number of households out of abject poverty. We think we've done well in that. Our biggest challenge remains the economy, where growth has deteriorated and growth in GDP per capita has also declined. Unemployment has risen to a 49 at 27.7%, with overall effect of these economic challenges being a loss of business and consumer confidence. Because half the time, if you read the Business Day every day, they will talk about business confidence. We're adding consumer confidence as well. Because the more difficult it is, consumers also begin to have their own confidence standard. This has been compounded by poor performance of state-owned enterprises as a result of poor corporate governance and policy uncertainty. I can report that a lot of time was spent on the state of the state-owned companies. The question of a number of them led by acting this, acting that, acting this, acting that. And actually we have nudged government to attend to that issue urgently because it does not instill confidence in this very important tool of economic development and growth, the state-owned companies. The Lekgotla discussed and endorsed the 14-point plan developed by the Minister of Finance as a response to the recession. But I want to explain that it's not another new plan. The 14-point plan elaborates on the 9-point plan for economic growth and is aimed at accelerating progress. So that's why many body criticized the Minister of Finance and said there's nothing new. Yes, there's nothing new, but there's elaboration of the 9-point plan and say, let us be specific in accelerating the implementation and progress in that area. Coordinating government intervention and acting as an accountability mechanism for delivery. The plan is intended to reduce government contingent liabilities by reorganizing recapitalization and government guarantees. It proposes a number of broad reforms, including developing a framework for private sector participation. Such participation will assist in improving the balance sheet of the affected SOCs and improve corporate governance. We have no doubt that the implementation of this plan will go a long way in creating certainty and boosting confidence among stakeholders. The Lekgotla further discussed the stalemate in the mining sector and its attendant effects on investment, growth, and unemployment. Lekgotla tasked the ANC Economic Transformation Subcommittee to coordinate an approach that looks beyond the current dispute over the mining charter to focus on the future of the industry in its totality. In simple terms, a debate that occasioned the country in 1997-99 of beginning to look into an industry that was beginning to be a sunset industry and change it into a sunrise industry. Occupied the Lekgotla that, listen, we can't just deal with the mining on the basis of the charter. It's a very important sector. We are endowed with natural resources. Deposits of various minerals are well established. It's one of the most mining map country. Therefore, we need to talk to the growth and the role of the mining sector to the economy of the country, not deal with short-term issues of just the charter here and the charter there. But that is not de-emphasizing the importance of transformation in the sector. Transformation in the sector is important. We must do it, but we should deal with the industry not in a way that appears to be punitive. We must deal with the industry in a way that provides leadership to make the industry perform so that the economy, it can make the contribution in the economic growth of the country. Lekgotla further resolved on a need for additional concrete steps as being necessary to stimulate economic growth. In this regard, Lekgotla urged government to reprioritize the current budget to focus on infrastructure development. This should be done without undermining fiscal consolidation and the expenditure limits. Specific issues, energy. Take into account the electricity generation surplus and electricity tariff dispensation that support growth and labor-intensive manufacturing sectors must be developed. So in other words, we should not just end in saying we have a surplus in energy generation. We must say, how do we use that as an enabling factor for economic growth and target labor-intensive sectors? Current phase of independent power producers program must be finalized as a matter of agency. On transport, few areas were identified as needing urgent attention and resource allocation. One is the Moloto Road and rail corridor, because we've been talking about for a number of years. We say it must move beyond just talk. There must be implication. Want to see contractors on site. And the N2 Wild Coast Road in the Eastern Cape, it was further resolved on the need for a cogent strategy on public transport system and necessity of the review of the taxi industry with the intention to stabilize this important sector. So in other words, we say the taxi industry cannot be dealt with in a haphazard way. It's a very important sector for our country. On water, Lekgotla noted the construction of Umzimvubu Dam is critical for economic development in the Eastern Cape and called for government to speedily implement and conclude the project. We reminded ourselves that sod turning was done in 2014 in Umzimvubu Dam. Grasses as tall as myself standing. It can't continue that way. Youth unemployment, the Lekgotla was of the view that all our interventions must lay the foundation for a more inclusive economy that addresses the problem of unemployment. They must provide young people with opportunity to participate in the economy, integrating them into existing and new value chains, rebuilding, modernizing and expanding our industry capabilities with the energy and ideas of young people. Lekgotla urged government to coordinate and assess the current initiative, including the Youth Entrepreneurship Support Campaign, the expanded Public Works Program, and provide guidance support for maximum impact. In other words, what we are saying is that there are programs that are in place. Some of them are not implemented as aggressive as they should to make maximum impact on unemployment. Lekgotla also resolved to intensify support measures for agricultural sector, in particular small-scale farmers. It was in this area that we emphasized the importance of begin to be outward-looking. We cannot just think of growth by just looking into our own situation. Food security is important, but agriculture must talk to export. You know, demand for premium wine in China is growing because of the change of the demographics there. We are a very good wine producer. Why don't we exploit those situations? The demand for red meat, which in China is regarded as the rich man's meat, we must exploit those opportunities. We must move beyond the ordinary. Lekgotla agreed on the need to immediate measures to stem job bloodbath in the retail, furniture, and textile industries, among others. Incentivizing industries that create jobs and demonopolizing the banking industry and broadcasting sector remain the key priorities. Lekgotla further called on government to set up a commission on the fourth industrial revolution by December 2017. You know, the fourth industrial revolution is thrown at us either as a threat or something that is here. This commission must be tasked with the development of national strategy to leverage the opportunities offered by technological advancement and disruptions while seeking measures to mitigate against the negative consequences. In other words, we must not just say the fourth industrial revolution is likely to destroy industrial jobs and stop there. What do we do to prepare our economy and our country to mitigate the negative impacts thereof? On the State Bank, the Lekgotla noted progress made to transform Post Bank into a fully fledged bank, and reiterated the policy position that Post Bank must be used as the bank of first choice by government and for its banking services in any transaction with the citizens. Government should develop adequate capacity, in particular for postal outlets in rural areas, to effectively undertake this role. The report that was presented gave us hope that Post Bank will be a full-fledged bank before the end of the year. And we are hoping that it will be a full-fledged bank before the end of the year. Lekgotla was resolute on the need to continue to encourage the creation of new businesses, cooperatives, and the expansion of small businesses by reducing the cost of compliance with government regulations, making it easier for companies to do business with the government. Government must pay its invoices on time and strengthen the role of our development finance institution. Now, one of the things that we highlighted here is the fact that we cannot continue talking about BEE compliant, because that phrase in itself is emphasizing continuing doing your transactions with big and established companies, as long as they come with a small partner. There must be a policy of actually procuring from black economic empowerment companies. So that will ensure that small and medium enterprises get an anchor base where there is secured market and they can provide services to the state, and the state must lead that. Lekgotla also called on the government to develop policy to establish parameters on employment ratios between South African foreign national and locally owned business, as is currently the case with foreign-owned businesses operating in the country. In other words, it should not be a free-for-all. We must be saying it is law. If law must be amended, it must be amended that in any industry, the ratio should not exceed 80-20. For example, restaurant must not just employ foreign nationals at the expense of the needed, much needed job for South Africans, but don't close the sectors. We must establish the ratios, 60-40, 80-20, 70-30, and we said government work on that. A government must also expedite the implementation of the national identity system that will be linked to an integrated immigration system, so that the identity, civil and immigration status of all citizens and all persons in South Africa is known and secure. The National Executive Committee called on the Lekgotla to come up with a concrete proposal on a free higher education, taking into account the ANC stated commitment to ensuring that financial, give me your statement. That's legal. Where is it? Yeah, financial needy and academically deserving student, whether poor, working class, or middle class, can access loans and bursaries in order to gain entry to university and technical and vocational education colleges without paying upfront fees at the point of entry. So that is a resolution that has been sent to government that take a decision. Being cognizant of the Higher Commission has until 31st of August 2017 to submit its report on the feasibility of the free higher education and training. The ANC Lekgotla resolved to introduce the following measures that should be integrated in the final work of the Commission. These measures will cover the first-year students for the first-time enrollment with effect from 2018. So in other words, the phasing in of fee-free education for the poor must be phased in beginning next year. One, fully subsidized grant should be provided for academically qualifying poor students. Poor students are defined as coming from families who earn a gross family income of 150,000. So if you are given financial assistance and you are in that category, that will be a grant. 150,000 and below, it will be a grant. Academically students from working class and middle strata families, currently defined as families who earn gross family income from 150 to 600,000 per annum, should be subsidized through a combination of grants and income, college and affordability loans, with their families providing a household contribution to their studies in proportion to their ability to pay. So we think that if we can introduce this for the first-year student in 2018, we'll be beginning to actually phase in the fee-free education at institutions of higher learning for students from poor households. Students will be required to maintain adequate academic performance. That is the condition. You must perform. You are given this grant, you are given this subsidy, you must perform. If you fail to do so, you will have to be disqualified. The Lekgotla resolved on the need to move NHI scheme from pilot phase to implementation phase with due regard to the current funding challenges. Accordingly, called on the government to factor in the required funding over the next 3 years, with primary focus being on covering the following groups in the main: school children experiencing barriers to learning, pregnant women, elderly, mental health services, and people with disabilities. The scourge of corruption is a threat to the economic development. To consolidate the country's effort to fight corruption, the discussion paper on integrated anti-corruption strategy has been launched. The anti-corruption task team has finalized with its operational strategy and forged working alliance with the Standing Committee on Public Accounts to advance collective efforts to fight corruption. The ANC welcomes the recent announcement and action by law enforcement agencies, as well as Parliament, to investigate allegations of corruption. A detailed ANC Lekgotla bulletin containing all resolutions of the Lekgotla will be publicly released in the next week. The ANC sends its heartfelt condolences to the families of football lovers who lost their loved one during the stampede in FNB Stadium in the past weekend. We call on government to urgently conclude the Commission of Inquiry into this tragedy so that the country may draw important lessons to ensure that this calamity never befalls us again. I think it is befitting to also congratulate the Lions for qualifying for the final in Super Rugby. One of the few teams from our country that qualified for back-to-back final, hoping that they will win Super Rugby this weekend against the Crusaders, who have been unbeatable this season. They lost one match, but they are beatable because they lost that one match against Hurricanes, which lost to the Lions last weekend. Thank you very much.
You can't miss the love of Rabi from the Secretary General. But thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Shall we take questions, if any? Where is Nati? Harja Omar G. Then Natasha from Business Day. Samgelo from Jacaranda. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mantashe and Mr. Lekgotla. The ANC's decision to provide...
Gwede Mantashe.
Can I call you Uncle Gwede? The grants for students who have an affordability of 150,000 rand or less, is that expected to, does the ANC expect that to be included in the MTPS-BS in October? Secondly, on the issue of unemployment, a lot of what the ANC Lekgotla said today, the ANC has been saying for a long time, way before 1997. You even included, if I'm not mistaken, in your 2009 and 2014 election manifesto that to deal with this issue of foreign nationals having taken over some industries, you should have more labor inspectors. You set targets before in your election manifesto on the issue of youth unemployment. The fact that the ANC is still saying the same thing, does that indicate the ANC government has not managed to deliver on these election manifesto provinces? And then on the issue of organizational discipline, the ANC's parliamentary caucus has come out just a couple of minutes ago to say Mondli Gugubela, and saying that he would put his hand up against President Zuma on August 8th, has exercised the worst form of indiscipline. And it goes further to call on constitutional structures of the ANC to take action against him. Does Luthuli House share the same view? Thanks.
Thanks, Harja. Natasha?
Thank you. Tate Mantashe, it's Natasha from the Business Day. Two questions. The first one is with regard to your comments on the mining sector. It's just a question of clarity. Are you referring to finalizing the MPRDA when you talk about looking at the mining sector more holistically, or does it extend beyond that? And then the second question is with regard to the SOEs. Obviously, we saw over the reports about the DBSA threatening to recall the loan if Eskom does not act against its CFO, Anuj Singh. I just wanted to know if, because that's another looming threat on the horizon, given the reports of state capture in a lot of in a few of the SOEs. Is that a looming threat for the economy where banks could recall loans if these issues are not addressed and acted upon? Thank you.
Right behind us, Samgelo.
Thank you. SG, mine would be also on the education aspect. How far did this proposal of the ANC Lekgotla receive any support from your PYA structures? In particular, have you had this engagement with SASCO with regards to what you are proposing on the implementation of free quality higher education? And the last question would be, is this an attempt to avert an eruption of protest from students next year, as we have seen in the past few years, mainly with those universities which were perceived to be upper class and those ones that were perceived to be predominantly black when protesting so much? Have you had any engagements with your student formations? Thank you.
Giovanni?
Hello. Okay.
Giovanni
Matali.
Giovanni, wait. Okay, proceed with Giovanni.
Okay. Although the Lekgotla had a mandate, which you have just addressed to us, that it took place and what came out of it, we do know August 8th is around the corner, and definitely what happened at the last NEC meeting was this talk came up on leadership. There are names, ANC members of parliament, who have come out and said that they will not be voting, or what their vote will seem to be on the vote of no confidence. And also knowing that Mambale Gambete is going to announce how this vote of no confidence will be taking place this week. Were there discussions about this at the Lekgotla?
SG? Shall I invite you, please, to answer before I take your last round?
what to avoid doing, Hajra, is to micromanage government and say to them, put this in this budget and put in this budget. What we put to them is that this is our proposal. It must be factored in the budget cycle, and it should be effective from the January, February 2018 intake of students. And we stop there. The reason for that is ministers of the ANC in government are ministers of the ANC. When we take this decision, as they meet tomorrow, they must actually discuss how best can we effect this decision of the ANC. So, we don't say put it in the October budget or in the February budget. We say by January 2018, this should be effected for the first students. And that coincides with the question on whether we discuss this with the PYA, or did we get the support of the PYA, or is it just an attempt to stop another protest? Now, PYA structures get invited to the Lekgotla, but it's not their decision, okay? It is the decision of the ANC. PYA structures will go back to the various campuses and be part of the student movement in dealing with this. It is not there. Therefore, we have no arrangement that we take this decision. The present representative of SASCO. Therefore, SASCO cannot act against this. There's no such an arrangement. We take a decision as the African National Congress. Is this an attempt to avert another shutdown in opening of schools? No, that's not the intention. The intention is to provide free education in a sustainable way to the children from poor households of the working class. That is the intention. That resolution is as old as the 52nd National Conference. Therefore, it cannot be treated as an emergency resolution because it is not. It's a long-standing resolution on which we have made a lot of progress. I'm not going to get into that. We're taking it a step forward now. That let's start with the intake of 2018 and pilot it, phase it in over a period. That gives the government space to actually prepare and budget for it over the long term. The many things this economic are repeated. It's a question that is always raised when we raise issues. There's nothing new. If we discuss and discover that these policies work, but we should be more aggressive on implementation, we'll repeat them. Because if every analysis tells us that if we can implement this effectively, we'll change the performance of the economy. We'll repeat them. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no new ANC that met over this weekend. That old ANC that raised these policy questions met this weekend and did an assessment and said, let's implement these things aggressively. There may be a change on their impact on the economy. You know, one member of the NEC reminded us that, you remember, we're so angry against Kia, very angry. It's neoliberal policy. But this member says, do you know that we recorded the highest growth in the economy when we had Kia as a policy, 4 to 5% growth of the economy. We threw it out of the window We took another direction. We don't have growth, we don't have jobs. And therefore, that was a call on us to revisit some of the aspects of care that impacted positively on economic growth. So when we meet and debate, people raise the issues and throw the ideas at us. And we have a responsibility to take those decisions and those views into account in rethinking. Action against Mondle. Every member of parliament is a member of the ANC in a branch, in a region, in a province. That is where action belongs. Doesn't belong here. You'll remember that when KZN said we're charging Makosi Koza, people tried to ask us questions, what you say, what's your view? We said the province must do what it is supposed to do. In this case, Gauteng must do what it should do. When Edward Zuma insults members of the NEC in public, the relevant province must do what it should do. You see, there's no member who has a branch in the head office. All the branches are in the regions, in the provinces. I was to say, hey, comrades, that behavior is unacceptable. That behavior is unacceptable. And that's it. So, don't ask for details, what will happen to Mondle. Please ask Gauteng, what will it do? But his behavior is unacceptable, simple. Okay. Mining sector, is this include finalization of the MPRDA and beyond? Mining is not a short-term sector. It's a long-term sector. You can't speculate with mining. If you invest in mining, you must be ready for a long haul. And therefore, we can't deal with it as if it's a short-term industry. The charter now, how is it finalized, the MPRDA, that all those things must be finalized. But at the end of the day, they are only as important as they have an impact on the performance of that industry as part of the economy. That is the narrative that came out of the weekend, that we were worried about this short-termism in dealing with mining industry, and the minister already told us about the charter now, and everything must collapse. There must be a moratorium on this, and so forth. So no, that is short-term in approach. Long-term is that we have a mining industry that is a long-term industry. We must deal with it in its holistically as an industry. Yes, finalize the mining charter, finalize the MPRDA, do any other things, but create an environment for that industry to perform as an economic sector. DBSA demanding firing of the CFO. Our view is very simple. Every institution in society must deal with the question of state capture. Okay. Information that comes through, you see, when we said that, was it Friday? Was it Thursday? When we said that institution must take action, and I can tell you, some of the journalists thought that we were being dismissive. We're not dismissive. The reality of the matter is that we're a constitutional country, and we can't sit here in Luthuli House and determine action that must be taken by the DPSA and the police and all those things. It can't work that way. In the process, we'll contravene the Constitution ourselves, will be on the wrong side of law. So DPSA is doing what is rightfully their call. When the NPA says we're having a unit to investigate some of these emails, it is the responsibility of that institution. We keep a healthy distance between ourselves and that institution so that we cannot be accused of interfering with the work of institutions. So our attitude to the DPSA is the same. Our attitude to any institution will be the same. ANC members, was there any discussion about the vote of no confidence and the voting of the ANC decision and the speaker? There was no such a decision. That was in the previous NEC. We agreed that ANC members will vote in terms of the decision of the African National Congress. That is a standing resolution of the ANC because we are a political party system in Parliament. And that's it. And actually, we've taken time to highlight to all of you the contradictions that are in the position taken by the opposition parties. You know, big noise, secret ballot, nothing, and once in Mukhale, there was a vote that has results that were not expected. Opposition parties took action against their councillors. We can give you a list of those examples, but when it comes to the ANC, everybody has this narrative. There must be a secret ballot for the ANC council, MPs. We don't understand it. So our view, we've taken a view, and that is the position of the African National Congress. And ANC, one of my comrades asked me over the weekend, is that what happens now if I don't like a particular form of voting? I said, no, you are free to take a walk because we're not a party of free agents. Because if we are a party of free agents, then we have no party. We can as well dissolve it. Because a collection of free agents who come together from time to time. We don't have an ANC of free agents. We are members of the ANC. We execute the mandate of the ANC. There is no two ways about it. Blackmail others, they blackmail us and say, what about the constitution of the land? The constitution of the land, we respect. We're not running the land here. We're running a party. And that party is called the ANC. That is where we start. We start from there. We can't have a party of free agents. If they have conscience, they should have discovered before they agreed to be on parliament on an ANC list. So you discover, where does it come from? So we've got that. We don't tell the speaker what to say on parliamentary issues. So we have not said to Sisbalega, allow a secret ballot or not. We are not going to do that. We have submitted our response to the letter written to the parties as one of the parties in parliament. And that's where we end. We don't go beyond that.
Thank you, SG. I'll start with you, Chairperson. Where's the mic? No, there's no way I can miss SABC. No, it's coming here to SABC.
Okay. Mahlatsi Gallants from News 24. SG, I'm hoping you could indulge me. What happens if the motion is actually successful? Has the ANC actually thought of what then happens?
Thank you, Mahlatsi.
Karabule CNBC Africa. SG, I'm particularly interested in the economic recovery plan and how, I would just like to know how envisages private sector opening up its wallet for reinvestment. It's been estimated for years now that they are sitting on trillions worth of rands, and they have been on a bit of an investment strike. And I think you need a charm offensive to make them open up their funds to investments. Are we on a course to charming them up?
Thanks, Karabo. Sam?
Thank you, Zizi. No, but please help me and excuse my ignorance. Which of these many resolutions announced here you think will help boost the economy quickly? If you could just name one or two. You mentioned something about the moratorium on licensing and mining licenses. Did you say it's short-termism that the minister responded the way he did? Then on the mining charter, the ANC expressed quite strong views. They were expressed by Zizi, among many others, on the mining charter. What should happen? Did the Lekgotla maybe say it should go back and be redrafted? Thank you.
No, pass it. I want ANC before SABC. Yes.
Thank you, Zizi. Thank you, SG. My question, I've got a question and a small comment for you. The question is on corruption. Your statement, this is my observation, on corruption from this Lekgotla is pretty weak. In a country where we're facing state capture, which you have as a party acknowledged that it's a real thing, for you to come out and talk about the discussion paper on the integrated anti-corruption strategy has been launched, that's pretty tame, I'm sure you would agree, given that we're facing a situation where there should be investigations. There's enough out there that should be at least be followed up by state agencies, and it's not being followed up. Where is your outrage? And while on that, has your deployee, the President of the Republic, come back to you about this establishment of the Commission of Inquiry that he promised, that you've been calling for months now, and it's still not coming? So that's the thing on corruption. The comment is on the Lobatse conference that you were talking about, SG. The house where that conference was held has actually been demolished because, according to the people there, the ANC simply didn't come forward to participate in sort of preserving this part of the heritage. So I want you to comment on how you aim to preserve the liberation heritage route when you can't take care of something that's, I think it's about 400 kilometers from where we are. Thank you.
Debo?
Thank you. My name is Debo. I'm with the SABC. I have two questions, one for the NEC and one for Lekgotla. The NEC was preceded by the National Executive Committee meeting, which discussed, I would assume, internal party politics or internal challenges of the party. Just before the NPC, COSATU called for the recall, or that the president should step down, and the ANC, and they wanted, in fact, to have an alliance political council. And the ANC opted for a binational with COSATU, including even the SACP. In your NEC Secretary General, did you discuss maybe any possibility of having a binational with COSATU and the SACP, and by extension maybe an alliance political council in the offing? And on the Lekgotla, maybe my question is then linked to Hashra Umachi, where you talk about the developmental state, of which its realization is dependent on the capacity of the state and those who are deployed in state-owned enterprises, their efficiency and their effectiveness to execute their responsibility. I mean, looking at SAA, for instance, it has been bailed out year in, year out. Are you confident about those cadres who are deployed in those SOEs to really turn around the state-owned companies?
Thanks, Ndebo. Pass it to Simpiwe.
Good afternoon, Aldrin Simpiwe from SABC TV News. On the issue on transport, did the Lekgotla at all discuss the current impasse between meter taxis and Uber? Then on the question of on fee-free education, is it fair to say that the ANC has been stringing the country along? That the ANC has led to a situation where there's been a loss of resources in setting up a commission of inquiry that's supposed to look into the feasibility of free education, and yet the NEC comes here and makes an announcement that from next year on we'll start phasing in fee-free education without having the Commission's report at its disposal. Why, is it fair on the country at this point? And like Samkelo said earlier on, Is it just another attempt to avoid the violence that could flare up again next year? Thank you.
Pass behind you.
Good day, Mfuneko from Reuters News. I wanted to ask, did the NEC or the Lekgotla accept the finance minister's 14-point plan as is, or were there specific proposals on how some of the targets in that plan could be achieved? And if so, are you able to share with us some of those proposals, particularly on the disposal of non-core assets? Thanks.
My very last hand is the veteran, SG, Stephen Grotes.
Veteran comes just before resignation and retirement, right?
No.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mantashe, Mr. Korda. Can I just ask, I just want to build on Samuel Kukeli's question about Musebenzi Zwane, the Minister of Mineral Resources. Is this process not designed to undermine him and the Charter? And if it's not, why not? Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. SG, that was the last question from SG. Stephen Grotes and Samson Gwede, both SG.
When I'm no longer Secretary General, I think there should be a policy of inviting journalists to be part of the discussions. How would you like that?
Their comments.
But we'll have to limit their numbers.
Yeah.
We can't have them more than the NEC itself. They will have to select a delegation of 10. And those will not be allowed to come to the media briefing. Because they will be part of the decisions taken. Matlasi, like dragging you into the hypothesis. What if now we don't do that? Okay, we don't do that. We move from the position of what is correct and come to a conclusion that that motion should not succeed because we're a majority in Parliament. If it does, there is something wrong with the ANC team. Then we can deal with that when it happens. So we can't plan for if it succeeds, this is what we're going to do. We're not planning for it to succeed. I would imagine that it is the DA that is spending his sleepless nights working on ensuring that it succeeds. Actually, we should be working day and night to ensure that does not succeed. So I can't help you with your question, Matlas. Private sector sitting on trillions of rand, how are we going to charm them? I think one of the things that we should discover as a country is that government, to create an environment for investment, I normally tell people that business, not in business to provide welfare, business in business to make money. And therefore our policies must be ensured that there's an environment for the private sector to make profits. That's it. And on the other hand, the private sector must not pretend as if it is doing us a favor by doing the right thing and invest in the country. Because if it does not, we get into a recession, we get downgraded. The implications are not for only government, they go to the private sector as well. So the most important thing is to ensure that we work together. There was a debate in the run-up to the policy conference of the ANC. A big debate about monopoly capital, white monopoly capital, that and that. And what we emphasize is that, listen, we continue emphasizing it. The relationship between the ANC and monopoly capital is one of unity and struggle of the opposites. Okay? We love and hate each other, but we are tied together around the hip. We need each other, we must work together until we all accept and understand that we're not going to perform in the economy. So the private sector must invest in South Africa, we must plead with them, but investing in South Africa must lead to them making profits. If they don't, for example, I normally tell people about mining and say the beauty of mining is that you don't say because you are angry you can take the mineral deposits, carry them and put them in another country you like. They will be here. If they're not exploited, they will be here. They will be exploited at a point in time into the future, but they are deposits. So what we should be doing is to create an environment for business to do business in South Africa. Business must invest so that we can actually grow the economy of the country. If it grows, government benefits in the form of taxes, business benefits in the form of profits. And that engagement must be out there. The problem is that when business are unhappy with a particular issue, sometimes they go to the extreme. They go to the extreme. They get satisfaction at the time, they invest, and then say, I don't think we should be in a phase as a country where we throw toys out of the court when we are irritated by each other. That would be my comment on that. Whether we're going to charm them, I don't think we need to charm them. We need to engage them because they have a responsibility, we have a responsibility. Together, we must make South Africa work. Which resolution boosts the economy? I don't know, Sam, if I was telling people in the Lekgotla that I'm a mining engineer by prior learning. So, you see, when you are a mining engineer by prior learning, it means you know the things on the basis of experience. Somebody want to buy Grootflay, I tell him as a mining engineer by prior learning, say, hey, master, please leave that mine alone. It's a gold mine mining water, you see. But mining engineers enjoy saying there's gold there. You go there, you find water. So that is it. What you would see in the resolutions of the Lekgotla, we're beginning to force government to talk to sectors. Now, if sectors receive sufficient attention, we can turn the economy around. Actually, there was recognition that was made there that, listen, we always emphasize the same sectors. You say mining, agriculture, manufacturing in the main. We don't pay sufficient attention to major sectors, your retail sector, your services sector, your financial sector, and financial sector, not just banking. Financial sector is a sector. And we say, let's pay attention to the sectors because the performance of the economy depends on the performance of the sectors. That is what will boost the economy, sir. Our attention paid to the sectors. For example, that's why I refer to you to agriculture. We can't just focus on food security, that we're net food exporter, and not go beyond there. We must actually prepare our agricultural sector to export more. We must go out and find markets for agricultural products. If we do that, we are actually working on the economy, the real economy. Resolution on corruption are very weak. Maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's a reflection of engagement fatigue on this area, that we say this over and over and over and over, rather than being sure that, listen, institutions must play their role in fighting corruption. That's it. If that is weak, I don't know what will be strong. You know, I went to Brixton, north of London one time, headquarters of crime at a point, and I asked them, and they were coming out of that situation. I said, well, how did you succeed? And they said, there was a simple formula. All the time we talked about crime in Brixton, there was nothing changing. The only change was visible when there were arrests, prosecution, and conviction. That's why when we welcome the decision of the NPA, it's not just the sentence that counts, it's the fact that the NPA has put a unit to action the fight against corruption. And we'll continue talking to the police and say, hey, police, anything that looks criminal, deal with it. Arrest, prosecute, and convict. If we don't do that, any strong words will not defeat corruption. So I'm actually accepting the criticism that maybe it is weak. House in Lubas was demolished. I don't want to be cynical to our comrades in Botswana because we're talking now. If a house is in South Africa, you see, when there is a complaint about a house of Robert Sobukwe in Kimberley, it's our business. Okay? It's our business. We must rebuild that house. And the commitment by the municipality in Francis part is quite an important commitment that we'll rebuild that country. If we don't have resources, we'll raise the money. It's important. We'll build the house in Lubas, we'll have monuments. It may be a house, it may be a monument in Lobase. But we'll do that with the government of Botswana. Because in Botswana, when we built a monument in Mozambique, in Matola, when we built that monument, we worked with the government of Mozambique. Okay, this interaction between ourselves and the PDP, that's why we say it is the beginning of a process to revitalize the liberation heritage route in Botswana. You say it's only 400 kilometers away. How many kilometers is it to Maseru? There were 2 massacres in Maseru. And we must pay attention to that and actually create monuments that actually capture the liberation routes of the ANC in the continent. That we're involved now means that we are revitalizing the liberation route, heritage route in the continent. So it's not a question of what happened to that house. We may rebuild that house. We may set up a monument. That there was a conference here in 1962. I don't know if you ever go to church. Or have you ever gone to church? I-monuments amatye wasilimisilelike salibiza i-Ebenezare ukuthi ubonise ukuba uThixo wasigcina sathi salapha. So sasimise ezaa monuments sihambe sibona heritage route. It may not be rebuilding of that, it may be just a befitting monument that tells the world and future generations that in 1962 the ANC held its own conference after burning here. uThixo wasigcina kwade kwalapha iyimela monument. Okay. COSATU called for the president to step down. Whether we're bilaterals or political council, it was a Lekgotla. Not unless this bilateral and political council must be budgeted for by the state, it would have been in that discussion that here is it, we must have a bilateral, therefore the Minister of Finance must make allocations to these bilaterals. It was not that kind of a nature of a meeting. The nature of the meeting was not for those issues. You will see that the part that we give you a report on the 1 day NEC, we just took decisions that were urgent to be taken at that point in time. The other decisions will go to the September NEC of the ANC. That's how it works. This one, urgent decision, 1 or 2, we take them there, but focus on the Lekgotla. So we didn't discuss everything and anything that affects us. We're still going to have a report that say from the policy conference, what has happened. And there are many things that are happening. It will go to the September conference. Developmental state depending on capacity, and that includes deployment of cadres, correct? That's why the question of when you get the full report, when you release it, you see that we spend the time and a lot of energy on the capacity of the state. We did that, capacity of the state. Talk about high turnover of senior managers in the state and all those, and in the state-owned enterprise. You will see that in that report. So we paid a lot of attention on that. I can tell you that the NEC cannot discuss a conflict of Uber and the taxi industry in a particular area. It can't. It can't. All we said, we must revitalize the taxi industry sector. That's where we are. We're at micro level. Then a local NEC, ANC structure must deal with the micro issues that are localized. Expectation of the ANC discussing a conflict, it takes in an Uber around the airport. And you are expecting too much from the NEC. The NEC will talk about the taxi industry, then local structures will deal with micro issues that are localized. It's not a country issue. It's a taxi industry issue. It's a transport sector issue. It will be discussed there. We can't take it and discuss Uber, because next time we'll have to discuss city to city. The next time we have to discuss Greyhound. We can't do that, no. No, Simpiwe.
We've never discussed it.
No, sir. No, Simpiwe, no. We can't do it. It should not be. Actually, we should not do it. Because once we do that, we're going to deal with a particular brand and either endorse or vilify a brand in a sector. The ANC should not do that. Because Uber is a brand. It's not a national crisis. It's a brand. E-Commission, Gaia, has not announced, but we are making an announcement on it before it makes pronouncement. Yes, because we resolved in the 52nd National Conference to work towards free education up to junior degree level for the poor and the working class. We put that in where HAIR is appointed to actually help us think through the issue. And then we should not continue, we should not stop thinking about it. That's why at a point we said, anybody who succeeds at final level, the loan is converted into a grant. We didn't wait for HAIR, we took that decision. When we said all the NSFAS in TVET colleges is a grant, we didn't wait for HAIR, okay? So we should continue thinking through this particular issue of giving kids from poor households access to education. We're informed by one issue only, and that issue is no child should be deprived right to development because of the economic status of a family. That's what is driving us. And we should continue throwing ideas at it to make it a reality. HAIR will come with this report, will look into it, it will help us think through and take further decisions. Did the ANC amend the 14-point plan? When I get economist by prior learning, like me being a mining engineer by prior learning, don't understand this. We said the 14-point plan is not a new program, it's an acceleration program for the 9-point plan. And our view is that it should be strengthened, it should be implemented, we should accelerate the implementation of the 9-point plan. 14-point plan is very specific, but it is not a different plan from the 9-point plan. Lastly, does this not undermine ministers? No, it enforces him. That when you are deployed to be in charge of a particular portfolio, it's not a personal domain. It is an ANC issue. If you commit mistakes, those mistakes come back here running. So we are not undermining Minister Zwane. We are having a responsibility to help him appreciate the fact that we should do things in a particular way that do not affect the economy negatively. That's our responsibility. Thank you very much.
Before you leave Pretoria, you didn't give an update on the Commission of Inquiry you've been calling for.
We have not been calling for a commission of inquiry. It has been decided. Actually, it actually came from the president in that NEC, okay? So don't make it as if we are making a call to the president. The president committed himself to appointing the commission of inquiry. And ours is to put pressure on him to say, accelerate the appointment of that commission of inquiry. Yes, okay. What is your question?
Una statement about. Una statement about. Asitsho statement.
No, uyandimosha.
Hlala phansi SG. Baza kumosha. Amba SG. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. SG ukhululekile.
All right, a very good afternoon. Those are live proceedings straight from Luthuli House, where the ruling party has just given the media a briefing on the outcomes, of course, of the party's recent Lekgotla that took place over this past weekend. Among the issues that were outlined, the issue of the economy and the ways to spur growth and how to deal with the current corruption allegations like your state capture, the issue around the free education impasse, proposals on the disposal of non-coral assets, as well as, of course, the issue around the mining charter were all discussed. And the SG there, Gwede Mantashe, saying on the motion of no confidence, they expect as a party that it will fail because they have the majority. But if it passes, then it will mean that there is really, really something wrong with the ANC, and then they'll have to deal with those effects thereafter. On investment, he said that their policies need to ensure that there is an adequate environment for investors as well as the private sector to make profits. He also emphasized that the relationship between the ANC and white monopoly capital is a love-hate relationship where one still needs the other until such time there are plausible reasons to separate. He said we shouldn't be a country that rushes to court every time there are disagreements on certain policies and governing structures. Also saying that the resolution on corruption might be weak, but this could be a reflection of fatigue on this issue. He said the relevant bodies need to fight corruption adequately so that they can get to the bottom of these. Arrest, prosecute and convict, because if that action isn't taken, talking won't resolve any of the corruption. Just some of the highlights there. Ronman, why don't we take a quick ad break and I'll have your daily news shortly after that.
easy as that. What a response it is from the Cheetahs. Brilliant score.
Imran Tahir produced a superb performance with the ball. The Proteas leg spinner put his side in the driving seat, scalping 3 wickets for just 18 runs.
Gifton Gope is flying toward third, and he is there with a triple, his first in the big leagues.
It is a Ferrari front row lockout, unless Hamilton can get on pole, and he can't. Ferrari, for the first time since France in 2008, have locked out the front row.
For all your sports news, keep it locked to Sports Live every Saturday and Sunday from 20:30.
A very good afternoon once again. You're tuned into News Today here on the SABC News channel. Your top story at 15:28. Kaizer Chiefs and Orlando Pirates have requested Premier Soccer League officials to institute an independent investigation into the stampede that killed 2 soccer fans this past Saturday. Addressing a news conference at the PSL offices in Parktown in Johannesburg, Dr. Irvin Khoza, flanked by Kaizer Chiefs owner Kaizer Mutawong, requested a senior counsellor to be appointed to probe what triggered the pandemonium. One of the 2 people killed in a stampede at FNB Stadium has been named as 30-year-old Prince Chawuke, and 16 people were also injured during the stampede. The stampede happened during the Carling Black Label Cup match between soccer giants Kaizer Chiefs and Orlando Pirates, and reports indicate that the annual soccer season opener was about 10 minutes into the game when the stampede occurred outside the stadium. Soccer fans apparently started pushing and shoving after they were allegedly sold fake tickets right before the start of the Soweto derby, and Chiefs retained the cup for the 2nd year running with a 1-0 victory.